Come on. Testing 1, 2, 3. Good evening, good evening. Welcome to the call. Can you hear me clear? Welcome, 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 everyone. Welcome to the call. Just want to make sure that you guys can hear me clearly. Just give me some feedback in the chat if you can hear me clearly. All right, thank you for that confirmation. I appreciate that. All right, let's get started. I'm so excited about this week's our message about manifestation. It is going to bless you entirely as it has blessed me. Uh, Time after time after time. So let's get right into episode 4. Um, I just want to welcome everybody back for all those who attended session 1, 2, and 3. Of course, I'm Dr. Hadley, and I'm so glad that you're here. Over the past 3 episodes, we've been doing some important groundwork. And in episode 1, if you missed it, go back and listen to it. But we quiet the loudest critic, which is our own mind. And in episode 2, we learn how to trust God in the in between. All right. And in episode 3, we claimed a powerful truth that you belong in the room. And so today with episode 4, we're going to bring it all together because once that we have quiet our minds, you have taken the time out to quiet your mind, I should say. And once our fear subsides or loosens, once belonging is settled, a new question, I believe, emerges in our mind. And that question is, how do I turn what I believe into what I live? I'm going to say that one more time. How do I turn what I believe into what I live? That's what we're talking about today. And that something is manifestation. All right. You can put manifestation in the chat so I know that you're with me. Let's begin by grounding this word, right? Manifestation, I need to make this clear, is not magic. It's not a magic trick. You're not pulling a rabbit out of the hat, I should say. It's not a wishing, woulda, coulda, shoulda type thing. It's not. Of course, it's not wishing, but it's it's not about naming and claiming it. I should say that as well, because we might hear that a lot, but there's probably no substance behind it. And we'll get more into what that substance should be. But I should say manifestation is not bypassing faith, right? There's a distinction there. Manifestation is alignment. That's exactly what it is. And what happens when your thoughts and your beliefs and your actions and your faith begin to work together. Scripture tells us in Proverbs 23 and 7 that as a person thinks in their heart, so they are. All right. That is revelational all by itself. Why? is that called out in the scripture? All right. I'm going to say it again. As a person thinks in their heart, so are they. So today, I want to talk about how our mind work, right? How the mind works, how the brain stores information, and how intentional focus, like a vision board, helps to turn faith into forward movement. All right. So here's how our brain works, right? I'm going to make this simple as possible. All right. The brain, because faith and science are not enemies, your brain is a pattern recognition system. Your brain is a pattern recognition system. It constantly stores experiences, it creates meaning, it builds shortcuts uh, based on repetition. All right. And every thought that you think strengthens a neural pathway. All right. And that means, what does that all mean? It means repeated fear will create familiarity with fear. And then repeated doubt becomes your default thinking. But, all right, there's the conjunction there. Repeated truth can retrain your mind. And that's where I want you to really position your mind, to really hear that very clearly, to really have a knowledge and an understanding about how your mind works on repetition and that we can retrain our mind. See, the brain doesn't argue with repetition. That's powerful all by itself. It adapts to repetition. So that's why renewing your mind is not a one time moment. You can't say, yeah, I worked on, renewing my mind or pretty much trying to get my faith to the level, well, my belief, you're gonna have faith. Let me back up. You're gonna have faith, right? Because faith is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen. And sometimes our faith and what we truly believe don't align. I know that sounds like a paradox, but sometimes it doesn't align. It's like, do I believe what I just said? Um, and that's because, let's go back to the brain and the repetition, whatever is in the default of your mind, which I'll call the subconscious mind, that's pretty much what it's going to keep bringing forward, right? It wants you to manifest. So if it's fear, it's going to be fear. If it's doubt, it's going to be doubt. It's going to be worry, it's going to be worry. It's going to be anxiety, it's going to be anxiety. And that's what it'll keep repetitionally pushing out to you. All right. But renewing your mind is not a one time moment. It's not something you do one time for one event, or maybe it's something, a goal that you have and you just do it one time. It is a practice. I like to call it a spiritual daily practice. All right. So retraining the mind, right? I want to give you some steps. Three simple steps, actually. I think less is more, and you just need to start somewhere, right? So, number one, I want you to learn how to just notice your default thoughts. So, really, you're just taking an inventory, you're monitoring exactly what seems to pop up, right? At time. What is that repetitious thinking that keeps surfacing, right? Not to judge the thoughts, but I just want you to notice them and notice them to the point where you just write it down. Because I always say, if you write it down, you have it before you, and you have it to go back and reflect upon as well. All right. So, and I want you to ask, as you are flagging these thoughts, what do I assume will happen? Right? That's just a question, right? So if a thought pop up and there's fear or anxiety, what is it that I'm assuming will happen? What story do I tell myself about the future? Right? Two questions there. I'm just going to repeat them again, just in case you haven't captured them. What do I assume will happen? And what story do I tell myself about the future? All right. Awareness is the first step to change. So that's all we're doing in step one. We're noticing our default thoughts, getting awareness around what those thoughts are. All right. And number two, Interrupt and replace. Interrupt and replace. When an old thought shows up, all right, we already did that in exercise one. I want you to pause and gently replace that thought. So I'm gonna give you an example. If the thought that repetitiously come up in your mind, this won't work, all right, then your replacement thought might be something like, I am learning as I go. All right, got it? I'm gonna give you another example. Maybe one of the thoughts that you're flagging in your mind is that I'm behind. You can replace that thought with I'm right on time for my assignment. You get it? So you're not lying to yourself. What you're doing is redirecting your thoughts. All right. And number three, I want you to repeat what you want to become. Right? That's a big one. The brain responds to repetition and emotion. So speak what you are becoming. And I always preference what I speak with I am. All right. Quote, I am in quote. So let me give you an example of what I say. I am calm. I am confident. I am capable. I am faithful. And I'm willing. You see, because what you rehearse internally shapes what you experience externally, right? That's the manifestation that's taking place, right? We want to see those experiences manifest in our life, those things that we want to become. All right. So I just want to shift a little bit over to the vision board because I think the vision board um, we hear it like every year and usually people are doing their new year's resolution, I would say, and probably by the end of the year they start working on their vision board for the upcoming year, and it just seems like it's a fad. It's we hear a lot of people doing it, but we don't really hear about the stories where those who have created vision boards took the action steps and they now see the manifestation of it. Okay. So I don't get to hear a lot of those stories. Maybe you, I'll speak for myself. All right. The vision board is not about an obsession, but it's clearly about focus. It's helping you folks, right? Focus really, really clearly, I should say. Because it's one thing to have what you want to do in your mind. All right. Pretty much you say, oh, okay, I know what my plan A is going to be. My plan B is going to be, maybe C is going to be, but it's all up in here. It's all scrambled up in here. And you haven't wrote it out, right? You haven't wrote out those visions. You didn't make them plain. You don't have any action steps that you've written out as well. So you know what steps to take. Your vision board will give you that focus. Your brain filters millions of inputs a day. So while you're holding all your information in your brain every day, there's a lot of messages that are hitting your mind, that it's hitting my mind. What you place in front of your eyes tells the brain that it matters. Whew, that is powerful all by itself. What you place in front of your eyes tells your brain that this matters. So it's so important to have that vision board, that visual there that you look at every day. Take a look at it. Take a look at what you feel you want to become. Maybe it's God has spoken prophecy to you. There's a prophetic word, and you have written that down as well. And you just need that focus every day to just take a look at that so you can stay focused on what matters. And so your brain will record that as well. The brain will begin to say, oh my gosh, she looks at this every day, maybe day and night. That'll help. The more you look at it, the more your brain will develop that pattern of thinking that this matters. The vision board helps you to keep intention visible. It anchors hope during doubt, and as well, it reinforces identity, not just your goals. So it's not about forcing outcomes here. I want to make that clear, but it's about training your attention. All right. So it's faith plus focus plus action equals movement. Now, sometimes with that name it and claim it, you might see where people tend to be, they have a faith minded approach to it, but they lack the focus and the action. There is action. All right. And all of it together creates your movement. Right? Got it? All right. So let's connect the dots. In episode one, I talked about that. We quiet the critic. So new thoughts can take root. And in episode two, we trust the next step, even without the full plan. Remember that? And then episode three, we claim belonging so that you don't shrink back. My God. And that is an important point. Let me make that clear. Um, because when we begin to see manifestation and things happening for us, some might feel the urge to shrink back. Like, oh my God, they might get scared all of a sudden. Like, oh my God, it happened. It really happened. It really manifests. I really got the job. I really was able to pass this test. I was able to get the promotion, whatever it is, right? But then it kind of puts us in a little bit shock and we shrink back. And we don't want to do that. What I want you to know about manifestation is that now we have to steward our thoughts and watch our life follow. All right. So very, very important. I wanted to flip over real quick. Give me one second. I was looking at it prior to this podcast even starting. I was looking at a fun fact. So give me one second. In 2005, the National Science Foundation published an article regarding research about human thoughts per day. All right, so that's why this is so important to refocus your thoughts, your mind. You have to train your brain what to pay attention to and what matters because there's so many messages that are hitting you every day. In fact, the average person has about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. Okay. And of those, 95% of those thoughts are exactly the same. They're repetitive thoughts as the day before, and about 80% are negative. That is huge. That is a huge piece of knowledge for you. Again, 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day, of which 95% are exactly the same repetitive thoughts. Now imagine if you replace negative thoughts, right? Which 80% of the 90% of repetitious thoughts that you have are negative. If you could replace that with a positive thought, how miraculous and how extraordinary would that be? All right. So I wanted to really bring that nugget of wisdom to you. I was so excited when I came across it. I'm a little nerd at times. So I love sharing and whatever will help you to be empowered in this season and seasons to come. My friend, I want that to take place or take root in your life. All right. So now I want to cover a couple questions. And some of these questions are commonly asked questions, perhaps when somebody's thinking about manifestation. And again, we talked about what that equation looked like. It's faith, focus, action, movement. You can't faith without works is dead. So we do know the word of God tells us that. So it's one thing to have faith. You got to have focus. You got to tell your mind, you're retraining the mind, right? Romans chapter 12 talks about renewing the mind. There's a reason why the Lord put that word is there. His word is there in the Bible for us. That roadmap is there for us in the Bible. So faith and focus, retraining the mind. and action has to take place for you to see movement, AKA your manifestation, right? What you want to become. Right. So I'm going to go to the commonly asked question here, and I'm going to begin with question number one, which is manifestation biblical or am I just wishing? All right. So that's a good question. And yeah, it can depending on what kind of knowledge or influences so far has impacted our way of thinking that we might tend to think that it might be a wishing thing or make a wish and it'll come true, or we might think it's a name it and claim it type thing without having to do anything. um, but I will say manifestation becomes unbiblical only when it removes God from the process. Mm. So, what we're talking about today is alignment, not control, right? So, faith does involve belief, action, and trust. We don't command outcomes, we partner with God through obedience, intention, we gotta be intentional, and stored with the stewardship, I should say, of the mind. We're storing in our mind, we're storing our thoughts. We're making sure that whatever thoughts are there that are negative, that we're retraining it with positive thoughts, right? Aligning with the word of God. So I hope I made that clear. If not, you can put something in the chat and I'll try to answer it from that perspective. But if not, I'm going to move on to question two, and I'll check in the chat a little bit later. Question two is what if my vision board doesn't come true? Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I would say a vision board is not a contract. Um, it is a compass. Right? It clarifies our direction and it doesn't guarantee the timing, but it gives us focus, right? If that makes sense. We all know that God's timing is not our timing, but we still have to do the work of faith and focusing and the action step, right? And we do have that compass. It's not a contract, it's not always a definite or literal, I should say. And everything has its timing. To everything, there is a season. So sometimes the vision evolves, and sometimes it matures, and sometimes it prepares you for something better. All right. Just trust the process, not just the picture. All right. So let's go to question three. How long does it take to retrain your mind? Remember, this is a daily practice. Your brain begins to shift with consistency. So the more consistent you are, not perfection, but building consistency, building new repetition of thoughts, right? Small daily practices can create a lasting change. You don't you don't want to wake up one day, I would say fully renewed. You become renewed over time. So you don't become renewed overnight. It's not like, oh, everything is perfect. I don't need to do anything else. No more work is needed. You become renewed over time. So progress, I would say, is the proof. If you're seeing progress, what you're thinking, the alignment of your thinking, your action steps that follow, and then you're beginning to see manifestation. And either you're becoming more mature in a way that you respond to your negative thoughts, you're becoming more mature about the path that you want to take, you're becoming more confident, more courageous, I would say. You feel your faith is increasing. You'll know progress is taking place in your life because you know how you was before. So you know how things are going now. You will be the person to be able to say, okay, this progress is my proof because I know what I used to think and how I used to respond, so forth. And what I used to think about myself. Now my thoughts are different. Right. And I do see movement in my life. Alright, so let me take a moment, and I'm going to look in the chat real quick to make sure that I haven't missed anybody. I see that, discipline is the key. Yes, yes, my friend, discipline is the key. And it sounds like it's an easy thing to do, and I don't wanna make it seem like it is. Because again, we're creatures of habit. We're creatures, our mind responds and move in repetition. And that's 95% of the thoughts that are flying through our mind every day. It's the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. All right. And so if we can replace that with positive thinking and intentional thinking, like don't get out there and or don't get into a habit of just trying to create something out of thin air. All right, all of a sudden, I want to be a billionaire. I'm not saying that is it can't happen because with all things, I mean, all things are possible with God. The probability of it happening and you want it to happen in the next day or so, or the next week, or the next month, or within this year could happen. Is it probable? Probably not. All right. But I never say never because it's not absolute. But I will say that if you train your mind to repetitiously think about what's good, keep something focused like a vision board, even if you have to, I wish I could show you my vision board. I will probably take a screenshot of it and then I will put it into the chat so you guys can have an idea, right? My vision board, I have a 10-year vision board. So it's in increments, like the first 1 to 3 years, I'm kinda looking up at it right now, and then the next timeline is 4 to 6 years, what I wanna try to be doing around that time, and then 7 to 10 years, all right? And then I have a list of scriptures, on my board. I have a big platform that I built on my wall in my office, and so I have scriptures that are there as well because I prayed and I just look for guidance from God on what scriptures. So I have my list of scriptures up there and I have about at least 10 scriptures. All right. And the scriptures are written out. I just don't have like, yeah, Psalms 23. No, I have it all written out so I can actually read it because I want my mind, my brain to be retrained. All right. And then I have, um, another set of posters on the board pretty much of where I think the vision God has given me that he wants me to work towards. And one of them happens to be faith in future reinvention. And the manifestation of this is that this is episode 4. So woo woo. I don't have 10,000 people, you know, on the chat or online with me right now. I don't, but I keep moving forward because it's about faith and focus and action equals movement and manifestation. So whatever God decides to do, it'll be fine with me, but I want to be obedient. I want to be in alignment and I want to keep sharing with you. So thank you so much for keep showing up. I just dearly appreciate it. But again, it's not just for me, it's not just for you. We need to continue to share it out so that others will be impacted as well. But I'll take a screenshot of, or at least give you an idea of my scriptures and put them in the chat. So when you go back and listen, I'll make sure that the chat is visible so that you can see it. All right, if that helps. All righty. I'm so excited that you're here. I don't see any other comments in the chat. But let's take a moment and pause and ask yourself, what thoughts am I releasing daily? And what do I want my mind to feel familiar with? Faith or fear? And you really have to ask yourself these questions. I know it seems like it's elementary, but it's so important because, again, we are retraining the mind. And your mind has been influenced and has been recording our actions, our behavior, and our beliefs since we were born, really. So it's going to take some time. So ask yourself the question, what do I want my mind to feel familiar with? Do I want to be more familiar with fear or with faith? All right. And then one What is one image, one word, or one truth that you want to keep before you? All right. Think of one word or a truth or an image that you want to keep before you. All right. And jot that down, put it in your journals. I would love to see, how things are becoming very inspiring for you. That's giving you more of awareness that, like I said, it's science and there's faith, but just know that the way our brain works is pretty magnificent. But what's even more magnificent is that we can change it. We can reprogram it, and we can retrain it. So that is just an awesome thing all by itself. All right. So remember, manifestation begins in the mind, but it's fulfilled through our faith, through patience, and through action. We don't become what we wish for. We become what we consistently focus on, right? Renew your mind gently, fix your attention intentionally, and then trust that what you nurtured internally will eventually show up externally. So until next time, I want you to breathe deep and quiet the noise and keep becoming. Renew your mind, align your focus, and watch faith move into form. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining the podcast tonight. Once again, please share it with everyone that you know, and I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. Bye bye.